Welcome to episode 3. Today we're going to be looking at some upgrades to the hardware, specifically to the bridge and to the tuners. But first, I want to get some things out of the way. A common refrain that I hear, or rather that I read on YouTube comments, is something along the lines of,
why would you pour a whole bunch of money into a guitar that's not even worth the total amount of upgrades?
The guitar itself is $400. The total amount of upgrades that I'm trying to put into it equals $541. Correction. $524. That's over $100 more than the guitar is worth. Now, some people think that that's kind of a ludicrous idea. They think that instead I should just save up the money and buy a guitar that is better. Now, here's the problem with that. Even if that guitar is better by whatever standards they're imagining, it's not the guitar that I want. I want it to look a certain way. I want it to sound a certain way. In other words, I want it to have certain kinds of pickups. I could try to find a guitar that meets some of my requirements, but it doesn't meet all of them. Some people might say,
oh, well, why would you spend this much money on a guitar that's not nearly as expensive as something like a Gibson Les Paul?
Does it make any more sense to buy a Les Paul and then upgrade it? In fact, I think that's far dumber. Insofar as there's no guitar out there right now that looks and sounds and feels the way that I want it to, this sounds like the only option that really makes sense. I am no luthier, I am not a guitar builder, but I am an avid hobbyist, and that's kind of what this is. Hobbies aren't supposed to make economic sense. They buy us a sense of happiness, a sense of fulfillment, and there's really no price that you can put on that. Moreover, I'm not trying to sell this guitar. This guitar is mine and nobody else's. Am I worried that it's going to lose its resale value? I bought it for $400. How much could I reasonably expect to get back from it used? $200? $250? Please. With that being said, let's talk about some of the upgrades that we're doing today. One of them is a Graphtec Resomax bridge. This is the NVS variety. I don't think they sell these anymore. It was kind of hard to find. It has the kind of lubrication at the bridge that you need without that sort of loss of the 2 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz frequencies that you get from their most recent offering, which has the String Saver saddles. So these are metal saddles with a kind of coating on them. And as far as I can tell, they retain the tone better than the String Savers. Second thing we're doing is installing a set of locking Graphtec ratio tuners. Funny thing about the tuners, I didn't buy the locking variety. I received a set of the locking tuners. I contacted the vendor. He said, you know what, my bad, you can keep them. So insofar as they're a better product, yeah, I mean, sure, let's do the locking tuners. The last thing that we're going to install is a String Butler. The String Butler is a contraption that routes the strings straight through the nut on a guitar. One of the problems with the 3x3 headstock design is the fact that the headstock breaks down at a pretty extreme angle, but moreover, the strings sort of go off this way like live long and prosper. It adds a lot of extra friction and tension, and sometimes the strings can get caught and bind, and that's what kind of rips it out of tune. If we look at all these things combined, they should give us at least enough tuning stability to work with. I don't do a lot of bends or whittlies anyway. I think the kind of upgrades that we're doing today are going to be sufficient to keep me in tune. So let's talk about those. So the first thing we're going to do is upgrade the tuners to these Graphtec ratio locking tuners. A cool thing about these tuners is that the gear ratio is different for each machine based on each string's sensitivity to tension, so they're numbered according to which string they belong to. I've already installed the 6th string just to take it on a test run before I film anything. They come with mounting plates designed to retrofit whatever type of tuner you have, and this guitar has the Clouson style tuners, so we'll use those type of mounting plates. More on this later. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the stock tuners. Turns out that the install job on the original tuners was kind of sloppy and some of the finish is chipped, so that was disappointing. We won't be seeing it when the new tuners are installed though, so I'll get over it. Next, we'll pop out the old bushings. To do this, we'll insert one of the new threaded bushings into the hole in the back and then press in one of the new tuners until the bushing pops out. Be careful not to overdo it and damage the headstock. Now comes the fun part. Reaming out the holes. This hand reamer has a 10mm diameter at the top, which is what we need, and I've marked out the depth I need on it as well. Alright, let's get started. One thing I learned the hard way, don't install a tuner when you're still reaming the hole for the one next to it. It's literally impossible because, well, just watch. Yeah, I lied. This part isn't fun. Just be patient and take breaks if you need to. Now, just repeat the process for each string. Be kind to your hands and your forearms and your knuckles, because this is going to be something of a workout. When you're done, you're supposed to lay one of the mounting plates over the hole and put your new tuner through. The problem is, a lot of these plates aren't very good fits for these cheap import tuners, so I had to get a little creative. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be annoyed with, Cort or Graphtec, but either way, I had to use different mounting plates for some of these tuners because they just didn't line up with the peg holes. Definitely aggravating, but we move on. Now that they're screwed in, you can turn the guitar over and lock the tuner in place using the threaded bushing in a 10mm socket. I'm using a 13 by 32 inch socket, and it's doing the job just fine. Before we secure the bushings on the 6th and 1st tuners, we're going to install this String Butler. I picked the acrylic one because I didn't want to obstruct the view of the headstock inlay. I'm also going to use the inlay to help line the String Butler up. Nice! And we're done with this part. Now we're going to install the Resomax bridge. In addition to the ULF or ultra low friction coating on the saddles, there are actually magnets under the post holes that allow it to attach magnetically to the bridge posts, thereby securing it down. We'll replace the posts that were here originally with the Resomax ones, and then we'll slip this bad boy on. And that's it. We're done. So, now that that's all done, I changed the strings out, and I've had a couple of days to play with it. It's hard to communicate feel through a camera, but the mass of the tuners makes this feel much more substantial. Even though I do have to make some minor adjustments every so often, it never goes egregiously out of tune. It's actually much more of an enjoyable experience to play. I know it's probably just a trick of the ear, but I feel like there's more sustain between these tuners and this bridge here. This bridge is a lightweight alloy, and so apparently that's supposed to help with sustain. Whether it does or not, I don't know. I could be totally tricked by the claims that are made by people on the internet and vendors and companies, etc. Who knows? What I do know is that the tuning stability is much better now than it was before. The tuners themselves are super sensitive, and I can get really, really precise tuning, within a 2 or 3 cent range really, really easily. I would say this was money well spent. So in the next episode, we'll talk about some upgrades to the electronics. Till then, stay at home, work safe.